Welcome to Two Souls Podcast, a podcast to shift, impact, empower, and disrupt your consciousness, ultimately allowing you to thrive in this human experience. Now here are your hosts, Amber Meganhauser and Angela Blaha. Welcome everyone to Two Souls Podcast. Angela here today. We are going to mix it up a little bit and we're going to do a 2022 cosmic forecast. So if evolution is not your focus in 2022, then the world will pass you by. Now, I'm sure that you have heard this saying before. And if you are like me, you sort of heard it but never really paid attention to it. Well, in 2022, actually, the energies are already upon us. And this saying, the world will pass you by, is actually truer than ever in the past. So welcome to the Cosmic Energy Forecast for 2022. If you need a theme for 2022, this would be your theme. That the world will pass you by if evolution, your own personal evolution. I'm not talking about the consciousness or your friends, your family. It's your evolution, your ability to move into your own mastery. That is the key component to 2022. It's a very big and abundant year. I mean, the energies have shifted. They shifted with this last eclipse, the lunar eclipse, and they're going to shift again, with the other two eclipses that are coming upon us. And so, actually, there's an eclipse today as I'm doing this audio. So, again, mastery. There are literally three things to be paying attention to in 2022 for your evolution. The first one is mastery. Being masterful of your energy is the key. Take notes here. This is the key for you to evolutionize yourself, your own mastery. This is a very powerful year for abundance. I'm going to repeat that because we've been in these couple last years of just stifled energy. Like you couldn't manifest anything, or at least very few of us could manifest anything. There's just been a lot of non-motivation, kind of feeling lost, not really knowing, what your relationships are like or what they need, not really knowing what your career needs or what you need for a career or to feel passionate. All of that has been changing over the last 2 years. Moving into 2022, though, this is a very powerful year for abundance, for opportunities, for potentials, like all those things that we talk about hypothetically. This year, they could manifest. And the key to this plentiful energy is you being the master of your life. You knowing and understanding what you desire and following those desires. In psychology, in the world of mental health, we have a concept of the way that we think. There's an up-down thinking and there's a down-up thinking. For most of us, we do the down-up thinking, where we take this component or this aspect of our life and it's like putting the puzzle together, and then you get the big picture. Well, up-down thinking is having the big picture and then putting the pieces together. That's the shift in our consciousness that needs to happen for mastery to become your way of life, become your way of living. So the next year will feel very, very free compared to the last 2 years. But because of this freedom, and we've talked about this before in this podcast, we most likely will find ourselves very unmotivated. Or you will flip to the other side and you will be highly motivated. You may not know for sure what you're motivated in or about, but you'll feel the motivation. Like you'll feel the passion and the desires and the drive for something different. Now, I generally don't deal in absolutes because nothing is ever absolute. We are, after all, energy, and energy changes constantly. It may change in a very slow pace, but it's always changing. So do not put yourself in an absolute this year in 2022, because black and white kind of mentality, which is where we've kind of been in black and white mentality for the last couple years. This kind of thinking patterns, they will not serve you. Because as you move into mastery energy and you being the master of who you are, there is potential for greatness. Actually, there's always greatness, right? And what you're looking for in mastery is what brings you to your highest self, to the numinous God self. And that numinous God self is calling you. The question really is, what will you do with this calling this year in 2022? The second thing is there will be divide, and there will be an even bigger divide among the masses. You can count on this for sure, because when there's a shift in consciousness, we resist, right? We resist our own growth patterns. We resist our own evolution. We resist our own mastery because that's where we've come from. We've come from mentalities, belief systems, actions, ways of being that have literally been limitations. I mean, that is humanity's history, and that is where we are coming from. Now, we avoid the mastery components of who we are because we don't really know what that looks like. We can't really remember being a master of our own self. We've always been controlled and dominated and manipulated in some way, some fashion. But this call for evolution is humanity's gateway, I want to say, to not being controlled, to not being manipulated, to not being dominated. I mean, we have an opportunity here to say, okay, no, enough. We're not going to go down that track any longer. We're not going to be, we're not going to fall into those kinds of manipulative, dominating, controlling kinds of hierarchical patterns that we've been in for such a long time. We don't need to continue on with the ability for humans to be harvested because we don't remember our powerful self. We don't remember our masterful self. And so all these eons, we literally have kind of been harvested through control, domination, and manipulation. So we have an opportunity here in 2022, and actually this is just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger all the way through 2027, to sort of release from those kinds of manipulative games. But humans are very, very stubborn. We are very stubborn. We want to be right. But in that wanting to be right, there's manipulation. And we fall for it every single time. So what 2022 is doing is opening up this plethora of energy that says, you know what? You don't have to follow that path any longer. And if you're not working towards mastering your own energy, that means mastering your physical body, taking control of your immune system, taking control of your nervous system, taking control of your health and your wellness, mastering your mental mind, being in control of your thoughts. Your thoughts should not control you. Being in control of your emotions and understanding your emotions. Why are you having an emotion? Not allowing your emotions to control you. Taking the action steps that purposefully align you to your desires. And desires come from the deep passion within you, right? Desires are not these weird, like sexual connotations. That's where we've come from, right? Like desires are sort of this weird energy or this weird thought field that we have. But desires are deep within us. They are the soul calling you literally to be in alignment with your highest self. Now, if we are not mastering those things in our life, those, our energy field, there will be great suffering. That's where this sort of divide comes in. And it's not division of people. Well, it is division of people, but it's the division within you. And if you are not mastering your energy and you have great suffering in this area, it's because you're not surrendering to your highest self, your divine self, your numinous self. And it will most likely bring mental and emotional suffering. Now, again, there is a field of greatness here. Gray equals change, right? Because sometimes the grayness are the baby steps that we need to take and not falling off of the cliff kind of change, right? So when we don't know for sure, it doesn't really matter. Just take one action step towards what you think is your desire. When you're willing to go to the place of all that is, and we've talked about that place of all that is, where you feel blank, where you feel void, and it seems very empty there, then it is a great possibility that chaos will rule your life and your internal divide will feel like a war. So please surrender to your own highest self and be willing to go to that place where you feel void, where you really feel no motivation. Because in that space, from my experience, my personal experience, and the experience of my clients, the greatest amount of change happens in that space. And none of us want to feel like we have a war happening inside of us, inside of your own mental thoughts, inside of your own emotions, unwilling to change, unwilling to take those new action steps for peace and happiness and joy and bliss. Like none of us want to feel that. Even though we felt that in the past and it feels more comfortable than the space of void. I mean, yeah, it feels comfortable there, but geez, it's not comfortable there. It's horrible. It's where the atrocities happens. It's where you are harvested because it's easy to dominate and control you in that space. In that space of, I gotta be right. In that space of, I don't want to make change. I don't want to change. I don't want to change. So please surrender to your highest, most powerful self. The third thing is to follow your joy. Like part of mastering your energy is being filled, like feeling the joy and the happiness and being with people and doing things that bring you this feeling of elation. This is the focus. Because honestly, when you feel the elation, when you feel the joy and the happiness, it is the hack that you need to master your energy. We've spent eons in the shadow side of who we are, looking for what needs to be healed, healing, ancestral trauma, healing our own physical and mental and emotional trauma through this lifetime. But yes, we do need to do that. And if you've been like me, where you've been literally working on that your entire life, it's okay to flip and do the hack. I'm giving you permission. There's a lot of people out there that weren't like giving themselves permission to hack into their own mastery. Always follow the joy and the elation and the happiness this year in 2022. Because it is the hack that you're looking for in order to tap into you being in the driver's seat, the master of your energy. The reason we want to follow the joy and happiness this year is because it takes you out of fear. And God knows that we have had so much fear over the last couple years that it's paralyzing. Now, when we are in a paralyzed state of consciousness, we need a hack. I mean, we can't get out of that paralyzed state without a hack. And the hack is to follow the joy. When we live in fear, and I don't care what kinds of fears you have, I don't care what your fears are, you need to acknowledge your fears. These are the shadows. Fears are the shadows. And when we don't acknowledge them and work through them, all the emotions that go with them, all the mental thoughts that go with them, the new action steps that go with them in order to break free from that pattern, you are not the master of your own energy. When you live in fear, you are being dominated, controlled, and manipulated. Because being the master of who you are, you have no fear. Because you always know the next divine step. You always know the next divine action step. You always know who you are. You always feel the joy, the happiness, no matter what is happening to you or with you or how you are. When you are in fear, you are being dominated, controlled, and manipulated. And the energies of 2022 are asking you to feel joy, happiness, confidence, knowing who you are, being the master of your fears. That does not mean that we ignore our fears. It means that we acknowledge them, that we work through them, and that we take a new action step to transform them. You see how that works? It's a real easy, simple process. Acknowledge your fears, work through the emotions that come with them and all the mental thoughts, and then take an action step to transform that fear. It's very simple, 3 steps. It can't get much simpler than that. Thank you so much for being with us. And if you love what Amber and I do, and Amber just couldn't be with me today, but if you love what we do, please share us. We want to help everyone in this universe transform in 2022. So until next time, from our souls to yours, have the most amazing day ever.